A strange insect-like creature tried to burrow into the boy's body, but the terrified boy flung it across the room. Before he could catch his breath, it lunged again and burrowed into his right hand. He could only wrap his right arm tightly, trying to stop the creature from climbing further up. The loud noise from his room alerted his mother, but when she came in to check, the creature had already vanished. Strange things began happening, one after another, afterward. On his way to school, Izumi's right hand suddenly reached out toward his crush, Murano, completely on its own. Murano, embarrassed and angry, walked away, leaving Izumi frozen in confusion. But the weirder things were yet to come. His arm stretched for a split second while picking up an eraser. In basketball, a casual throw landed perfectly in the hoop. Each bizarre change made Izumi increasingly unsettled. He began to realize the creature from that night hadn't disappeared at all. So he went online searching for answers. And then his right hand suddenly grew an eye. Panicking, Izumi grabbed a knife, trying to remove it from his body. But before the blade could touch his skin, his right hand twisted and warped. In an instant, it had reshaped into a grotesque creature. These creatures were called parasites, born from ocean pollution. They invaded the human brain, seized the host's body, and went on silent killing sprees. Though indistinguishable from humans in appearance, they fed on people. In a short time, they plunged society into chaos and fear. Within a single night, the creature had learned to speak fluent Japanese. It even gave itself a name, Migi. It had become symbiotic with Izumi, surviving by absorbing nutrients from his bloodstream. Realizing Migi posed no threat to him, the two unexpectedly reached an understanding. Izumi would show Migi the human world, and Migi would silently protect him. One day, Migi sensed another parasite and eagerly led Izumi toward it. But the sight of the closed shop filled Izumi with a sense of dread. They stepped inside cautiously and found a parasite feeding. It even enthusiastically offered to share its meal with Izumi. But he quickly realized Izumi was still fully human. Migi sensed the murderous intent and urged Izumi to leave immediately. The parasite suggested Migi abandon the human and merge with him instead. Seeing Migi hesitate, he even tried to kill Izumi on the spot. At the last second, Migi shielded Izumi, killing his own kind for the first time. Although Migi claimed he acted only because a transfer failure was likely, Izumi was still grateful. On his way home, Izumi passed by the pharmacy where his mother worked. Watching her tired, overworked figure, a quiet ache welled up in his chest. His mother had noticed the changes in him, but he chose to hide everything, not wanting her to worry. Thinking back on everything that happened that day, Izumi felt torn. He wanted to expose the danger of the parasites, yet feared he'd be taken away and used for experiments. But Migi had a completely different view. To Migi, parasites consumed humans simply to survive, just as humans ate animals. He claimed that nothing mattered except his own survival, and if Izumi ever tried to harm him, the outcome would be far worse than he imagined. Meanwhile, a bizarre incident in a restaurant had caught the attention of the police. Finding traces of human tissue inside the victim's stomach left the officers even more stunned. The next morning at school assembly, Migi sensed another parasite nearby. That person turned out to be the new teacher, Ryoko Tamiya. The moment Izumi looked at her, she noticed him as well. Ryoko Tamiya didn't hide her identity and even recognized Migi instantly. She explained that she only wished to live quietly and had no intention of causing trouble. Yet the fact that she could take over a human brain and blend into society so naturally, even teaching humans, made her all the more intriguing. This made Migi even more intrigued by her. To understand her true intentions, the two of them visited the aquarium after school. There, they encountered two more parasites, the student Hideo and Officer A. Both were members of the network Ryoko Tamiya had formed, exchanging information and learning from one another. Everything she did was to ensure the long-term survival of the parasite species. Now she tried to persuade Izumi and Migi to join her side, hoping they would think it over. But as they were leaving, Migi sensed Officer A's murderous intent toward them. Back at the residence, the two parasites were feeding, while Ryoko Tamiya sat aside, eating regular human food. It turned out she was conducting a bold experiment. She was pregnant with a new life, but parasites couldn't reproduce, meaning the child was actually a normal human. That was why Ryoko Tamiya was more cautious than ever. At home, his mother once again sensed something off about Izumi, but Izumi didn't want to drag her into danger, so he quickly got up to leave. Hearing her worried voice, Izumi could only push her away with a harsh, cutting tone. Yet the moment he saw the scar on her hand, a sharp pain still tightened in his chest. She had once grabbed a scalding hot pan to protect him. Because of that, Izumi felt even more guilty, secretly expressing his love for her through his drawings. But no one knew this would be the last time mother and son ever saw each other. On the way home, Migi once again sensed that icy, murderous intent. It turned out A had targeted them, intending to personally eliminate this unstable factor. Sensing something was wrong, the two immediately turned to flee. but A instantly shifted into combat mode. Migi engaged instantly, and a fierce clash erupted between them. Meanwhile, Izumi quietly approached A. A's attention was entirely on Migi, never expecting Izumi to take the initiative. In the next moment, an iron rod plunged deep into him. Froze for a moment before collapsing with a thud. Back at home, Izumi couldn't help but vomit. Although A was a parasite, his body still appeared human. For the first time, Izumi truly felt that he had killed someone. With Migi's calm reassurance, Izumi gradually regained his composure. Meanwhile, A was not dead. He temporarily stemmed the bleeding by stabbing his own body with the iron rod, but that body could no longer be used. He had to switch to a new one. Unfortunately, Izumi's mother happened to pass by the alley after work. The moment she stepped in, everything began spiraling toward an irreparable disaster. Izumi, sleeping, was hurriedly awakened by Migi, who sensed the approach of another parasite. The door lock turned, and his mother, expressionless, appeared before him. Izumi let his guard down, thinking it was just his mother coming home late. But Migi kept warning him. The person in front of him had long been possessed by a parasite. Izumi stubbornly refused to accept this cruel reality. All the guilt and regret buried deep in his heart poured out at that moment, as if trying to make up for the love he had failed to properly respond to. But the mother's face suddenly twisted, and in the next second, cold tentacles pierced Izumi's chest. After confirming Izumi was about to die, A left without hesitation. Lying on the ground, Izumi's consciousness blurred. In his final moments, Migi pierced into his wound. He used his own cells to desperately repair Izumi's body. Whether he succeeded or not, he couldn't let this boy die, because from a certain point they were no longer just parasite and host. Finally, after days and nights of repair, Izumi opened his eyes again. He staggered to the mirror, staring at the scars on his chest, realizing that everything he had endured was no dream. Izumi had truly lost his mother. From that moment on, Izumi's personality changed drastically. He swore he would find A and avenge his mother. After learning about Izumi's mother's disappearance, Murano tried in every way to console him. She had also noticed Izumi's change, but seeing them interact naturally, Murano pushed all her concerns aside. After leaving the supermarket, they saw a small dog in the middle of the street. Izumi picked it up, only to discover it was already dead. To Murano's shock, Izumi threw the dog straight into the trash. He claimed the dead dog was just a lump of meat in the shape of a dog. Murano was stunned. In that moment, she felt she no longer recognized the boy in front of her. Izumi, too, realized gradually that his personality was beginning to shift toward Migi. One day, as Izumi wandered aimlessly through the streets searching for a target, Migi suddenly sensed another of their kind. The parasites had infiltrated the political world, completing a staggering intellectual evolution within just a few months. This only strengthened Izumi's resolve to hunt down the parasites. At the same time, the police discovered that 2 crime scenes shared identical fingerprints. Following the trail, they found Izumi's home, but uncovered nothing. Before Izumi could relax, the next day at school he encountered the last person he wanted to see. Hideo had transferred to his school, even putting on a seemingly friendly facade. Izumi felt a wave of disgust, and the two engaged in a subtle struggle during a handshake. Hideo was shocked to discover that Izumi's physical strength far exceeded that of a normal human. He immediately reported this change to Ryoko Tamiya. When Ryoko learned that Izumi and Migi had begun merging, she became extremely excited. This represented an unprecedented potential between parasites and humans. But such evolution came with a fatal flaw. From now on, Migi would randomly enter complete hibernation for 4 hours each day. During those hours, Izumi would lose all protection from the parasite. Meanwhile, the police were gradually advancing their investigation into the parasites. Based on the mutilated bodies left at the scenes, they finally found a way to identify a parasite. If a single hair was plucked and it wriggled, it confirmed the being was not human. This method was immediately announced, urging everyone to stay vigilant, but most people remained oblivious to the danger right beside them. One day, Murano was invited by a friend to be a painting model, and Hideo was among the group. With his handsome appearance, he had long become the secret focus of the girls' gossip. One girl jokingly plucked a strand of Hideo's hair, thinking it was just a harmless prank. She was stunned as the hair began wriggling on the ground. The girl's face instantly turned pale, and the true horror was only beginning. Hideo revealed his true nature and snatched the girl, attempting to flee. At that moment, Migi sensed Hideo's intense murderous intent, so Izumi hurried over with him. The studio was in chaos when Murano suddenly noticed a container of acid nearby. As Hideo advanced, Murano seized the moment and hurled the acid at him. Caught off guard, Hideo instantly went into a frenzied state. Murano tried to lead everyone away, but a girl in front of her was unexpectedly killed by Hideo. The students stampeded downstairs, while Izumi ran upward against the flow. Seeing the floor covered in bodies, he could no longer stay calm. Thankfully, Migi was by his side, helping Izumi regain some composure. He stood up once more and continued forward, stepping over the scattered corpses. At this moment, Murano was desperately trying to evade Hideo's relentless pursuit. Despite her caution, Hideo managed to sense her presence. In the next second, the cabinet she was hiding behind was violently overturned, and Murano was thrown to the ground before before she could react. In the critical moment, Izumi arrived just in time to save Murano. But Hideo had already lost control, his tentacles thrashing wildly. One violent strike even severed Migi from Izumi. This forced the two of them to approach their enemy with extreme caution. At that moment, Ryoko suddenly appeared, staring coldly at Hideo, who had caused the chaos, and threw a Molotov cocktail. Izumi immediately reacted, scooping up the weakened Murano and leaping out of the window without hesitation. As they hit the ground, the flames erupted violently. By then, the police and an ambulance had finally arrived, and Izumi hurriedly placed Murano onto the ambulance. The police immediately entered the school building to assess the situation. Before anyone could react, a tentacle suddenly lunged out from the darkness. To their shock, Hideo was not dead, and worse, the police firearms had almost no effect on him. His consciousness was in total chaos, leaving only instinct to drive his movements. At this moment, Migi once again detected Hideo's chaotic energy. To eliminate the threat once and for all, Izumi grabbed an iron rod and climbed to the rooftop opposite the school. Soon, Hideo stumbled onto the rooftop. Seeing this, Izumi quickly had Migi form into a bow shape. The iron rod shot out, piercing through Hideo's body, finally ending his life. After completing the task, Izumi turned and saw Ryoko behind him. The deaths of the students fueled his hatred for the parasites, only wishing he had ended their lives sooner. But Ryoko calmly mentioned the child in her womb.
私を殺せばお腹の子も死ぬ。母親とは不可解な存在だな。母親になると理論を超越した。
Immediately after, Ryoko revealed as location to Izumi. She knew that A could never accept her integration into human society. If left unchecked, it would sooner or later endanger the child in her womb. More importantly, Ryoko was seeking a new path for coexistence between parasites and humans. Meanwhile, the police investigating the rooftop noticed signs of another presence. Following the address on a note, Izumi arrived at A's location. Seeing the monster wearing his mother's skin, he forced himself to stay calm. He then slowly followed the monster's steps. But at the critical moment, Migi suddenly signaled him to retreat. The after effects of the previous heart repair suddenly struck. Migi only had time to transform into a blade before collapsing into sleep. With the monster right in front of him, Izumi had no choice but to fight head-on. Since merging genes with Migi, his physical abilities had improved dramatically. Every strike he delivered was packed with explosive power. Seeing he couldn't win head-on, A suddenly reverted to his mother's appearance.
やめて、Shinichi。どうしたの？母さんよ。
In the brief moment, Izumi hesitated. A seized the chance to lash out with a tentacle, but at that instant, the attack veered off course. It seemed his mother's residual consciousness briefly emerged, shielding Izumi from the blow. His mother had saved him once again, but Izumi realized he could no longer shed tears. Meanwhile, the new mayor had been inaugurated. It was the parasite Izumi had seen on stage before. Clearly, they were preparing for a much larger storm. The new mayor then arrived at Ryoko's base, bringing along a new member. This individual was the most dangerous parasite Ryoko had encountered so far. His sole goal, eradicate humans entirely from the world. The mayor was thrilled, but Ryoko's expression grew increasingly grave. She instinctively touched her abdomen, as if sensing an unknown threat. Meanwhile, Izumi finally understood the path he had to take.
どんな奴だろうと関係ない。寄生生物を見つけ出して、一匹一匹殺していく。それが俺のやるべきことだ。
Little did he know, all of this was being watched by a mysterious figure, and the real storm was only just beginning.